Hey guys, Pete here. This is going to be my Twin Peaks Season 3, Episode 12 recap and review. It's been a long time in the making, but I do need to give you a spoiler warning that if you haven't watched Part 12 yet, then you're going to want to click away. So Part 12 of The Return has turned out to be a polarizing point in the season for people again. This is not the first time we've been here, but I was a fan of the episode on the first watch, and I like it a lot better as I continue to watch it, and I think there's some really interesting stuff at play here. The one thing I want to point out before I jump into things is that if you're one of the people who was really angry about this, and there were several people who commented in that way, I think it's important to keep in mind here that this is not a situation, in my opinion, where time could be wasted. This is a story that's always had a beginning and an end, and after they wrote that story, they decided that it would take 18 hours to tell it. And as this season goes on, I think it's been made abundantly clear that this is a collaboration between two people. This is not a David Lynch production. This is a Mark Frost and David Lynch production. And I think this episode is a perfect example of that. So I'm going to jump into a bit of a scene by scene, not quite like before, and then we'll talk about that more at the end. So alright, in the first scene, we get Gordon, Albert, and Tammy all together in the hotel in Buckhorn. We learn some really important stuff about the mythology when Albert explains what the Blue Rose Task Force actually is. This is huge. This is something that we've all been waiting for. And it's something that is hinted at in the secret history as far as Dougie Milford and Major Briggs are concerned. But this is actually the first time we really understand where Gordon's involvement in all of this is. So we find out that back in 1970, after the Air Force shut Project Blue Book down, Blue Book is a real thing, and it was their official 20-year investigation into UFOs and the paranormal. It was officially shut down, and according to Albert, the military and FBI formed a secret task force to explore the troubling cases that Blue Book couldn't resolve or failed to resolve. Now, in the secret history, we get Dougie Milford, who set up Listening Post Alpha, where Major Briggs worked, but we never see the direct involvement of the FBI, other than he mentions that Cole was the one person in government that he could trust. We also get a huge reveal that people were wondering about based on other theories and things, where he mentions that Agent Desmond, Chet Desmond from Firewalk With Me, was officially one of the Blue Rose group. We also found out that the term Blue Rose came from a phrase that was uttered by a woman involved in one of these cases just before she passed away. So that's interesting. Either way, though, we find out that Gordon set it up. He put his old buddy Phillip Jeffries from Quantico in as the leader. Chet Desmond, Albert, and Dale Cooper were the original guys. And Albert points out that he's the only one that's still around who didn't disappear mysteriously. Then he says because of that fact that they don't really bring anybody into it for quite a while, but that's until tonight when he actually tells Tammy that she can join if she wants. And we found out that they've been watching Tammy for a long time, that she was a star student through high school, college, and at Quantico. She agrees to join enthusiastically, and then Albert says that they will brief her fully in the morning, which again is a pretty big thing. What are we going to find out when they brief her? If we see it, I hope we do, but we'll see. Then they call Diane in after they have a drink, and her entrance is bizarre. There's been a lot of different theories that have been tossed out of there just because of the fact that she comes through a red curtain to enter the room. But when I watch it again, there's definitely something odd about her behavior here. So anyways, they tell her that they're thinking about the fact that she could be useful since she had really close contact with Cooper. And even though she's not a member of the FBI anymore, they'd like to bring her on as a deputize her as part of the group. Then as the Firewalk With Me music kicks in, she says, "Let's rock," with a hand gesture. Both things totally not like her. And I noticed it stands out to me that she puts her cigarette out before she responds, which she's always smoking otherwise. So yeah, it's weird. Then we get a quick shot of Jerry running out of the woods. He seems to be in a meadow below the peak there, and that's all we see. He's running, he falls, he has a giant hip sack on and a backpack, and that's about all we can ascertain from that little thing. Then we finally see Sarah come back in the story, Sarah Palmer, and we witness a freak out that is up there with all the weirdness of the original series and Firewalk with Me, I would say. Like, this is a direct connection to all that stuff, particularly the horror aspects of this show that we've all loved for all this time. Not to mention, it's wonderfully acted. I mean, it's just great. But anyways, she comes down the aisle. We finally see that shot that we had seen in the trailers. She's buying liquor, Smirnoff, basically all they have on the shelf with some mixers. And then she becomes affected when she sees that there's a new rack of beef jerky on the wall behind the register. It's almost like she starts to lose control. The one thing she says is she asks if it's smoked. And then she says, were you here when it first came or when they first came? And you can see here that there's a disparity between what she's saying and the counter person's ability to understand what's going on. She says the room seems different and men are coming. She starts to really lose it and she says, you have to watch out. Things can happen. Something happened to me. She then leaves the store. She's talking under her breath. It's almost like she's talking to herself or to another voice inside her head. And we really can't say for sure what's happening here. Now, there's been a lot of different theories that people have come up with, but it seems to me like there's something otherworldly happening here that we can't see as viewers. Make a quick trip over to the Fat Trout. We get to see the good side of Carl. He has a quick conversation with a guy, an older gentleman who's been doing work around the place and doesn't really get paid for it. He's found out that this guy's been selling blood in order to get money, so he gives him some cash and tells him he doesn't have to pay his rent, and it's a cool little scene. Then we get our only interaction with Dougie Coop, who we see Sonny Jim take him outside with a baseball glove, and he tries to initiate a game of catch, and the ball just bounces right off of Dougie Coop. So I think a lot of people probably would cite this as one of the big disappointments because obviously at the end of the last episode, a lot of people thought that he was coming back in the scene where he was eating cherry pie, but he looks to be his old self here. And we don't get anything else, so this is where we're at. After that, we see Hawk pull up at the Palmer house. We hear the old music playing, and we get another great performance and some uniquely weird Twin Peaks stuff. Like we see that the ceiling fan's going, that sets the tone. Sarah, is she being herself? I don't know. I mean, she seems to be really odd here, right? He says, hey, I'm just here to check up because I was going through some old cases. She sees through that and says, you're here because of what happened. And then we hear the noise. It's a mysterious, unexplainable noise. It happens in the kitchen. We can hear some bottles or something. I read some theories about this, that maybe the bag boy who delivered the liquors over there. We don't really know this is at the exact same time, though. And if we go that road, then we have to think that she is actually possessed by the lodge spirits or something along that line. So for the time being, I'm going with it's a mysterious, unexplainable noise, and hopefully we find out more about that. After that, Hawk asks her if she's okay and if she needs anything and so on, and she says with her teeth clamped, through her clamped teeth, she says, it's a goddamn bad story, isn't it, Hawk? And again, we don't really know what she's talking about. Obviously, her life is a bad story. What happened to her daughter, what happened to her husband, that's a terrible story. But is that what she's talking about? We really don't know. We see that Miriam's okay, but not much more. We do hear the monitors making some noises as it cuts away, but I'm not sure that that implies anything. And either way, we find out later that she's already spilled the beans about Richard Horne to the sheriff either way. We see Diane receive a text message at the hotel bar. It says Las Vegas with a question mark, and she responds, they haven't asked yet. From there, we go straight over to the Great Northern. We see Ben in his office. Frank Truman comes in. He tells him what I just mentioned, that Richard was the one who killed the boy in the hit and run, that he also tried to kill Miriam, who's in the hospital now, and she's in bad shape, and she needs some money because she doesn't have insurance. Ben says, of course, I'll take care of that. He tells him that Richard Horne's on the run, and we don't really exactly know what that means. We saw him last when he robbed his grandmother. We get a nice reference to Harry as Truman, the old Sheriff Truman, I guess, in this case. But Frank only says he's hanging in there, which is what we've already known as well. The key comes up. He gives it to Frank to pass on to Harry. Sets off some alarm bells in Frank's look about why it showed up just now. So there may be some further investigation related to that happening. After Frank leaves, Beverly comes over and Ben tells her that Richard never had a father, and he goes into the story about his own father and the Schwinn bike with fat tires. And I mentioned in my Top Moments video that I thought this kind of squarely put things on Audrey as being Richard's mother. But that wasn't a very popular idea. Lots of people pointed out that Johnny would still be, like, if you had Johnny as a father, a biological father, that would still be the same as not having a father. I would mention that it didn't seem like that was his father whenever he came over to rob the grandmother. But then again, Richard is obviously being painted as a sociopath, so I don't know that we can tell anything by watching him. Then we get into Gordon's date, which I detailed quite a bit in the Top Moments video, so I won't retell it all. There's a popular theory out there that somehow this is code that's going on between them. I really don't see it. I think this relates back to what I was saying before, but I won't get too deeply into it. Basically, this woman that's there, before Albert shows up, we see that she is completely leaning on Gordon's shoulder, just hanging off his every word. Then when Albert says he has something important to him to talk about, can she wait downstairs? She takes what is the absolute longest imaginable time to leave the room, while Gordon looks on lovingly as she does. Albert is everyone in this scene as he sits there and has this crazy look on his face. And then Gordon tells a bad joke, and eventually they get down to business of what Diane's text said. Albert at one point asks him about the wine, and Gordon makes it out like he thought he said what time, and he looks at his watch. I don't know if he misunderstood him there or not. A lot of people think he didn't, but it could just have been a plot device to say what time it is. But at the end, there's this really kind of touching moment that he says, sometimes I really worry about you. And it's kind of like that scene that we saw way back with the Blue, you know, when they first come out of the prison after seeing Evil Coop for the first time. And I just think it's a real nice testament to these actors and the relationship that we all have with this series. And it's just freaking sad when you think about it that Miguel Ferrer died since, I mean, he's never even probably never even got a chance to see this scene play out. And I don't know, for me, it was a scene that brought up a lot of sentimentality. We can't focus on that for too long, though, because we catch up with Hutch and Chantel. They have a brief discussion about whether Chantel's sure that she's hungry, that she really doesn't want to go out there and torture this guy, Warden Murphy, and it's a great scene. It's hilarious. They talk about Wendy's and her being hungry, and then, like a professional assassin, he kills Warden Murphy with no problems. His son comes out to see his father, which is awful, and they take off with him saying next stop Wendy's like it was just any other job. We get a little transition with Dr. Amp, and at the time I was just sort of like, okay, whatever, but it's starting to make me think about where Jacoby fits into the puzzle at this point. We know that whenever he starts off, he says he's at Whitetail Peak, which is obviously the opposite peak of the Twin Peaks. So that's interesting. I really don't know why Nadine is so mesmerized by this guy, but we don't get a whole lot of new information here, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip it beyond that. So then we get the big reveal, and I think this is probably where a lot of other feelings come up for people because of the fact that this is not how they expected Audrey to return or how they expected her to be. I read a lot of people saying that maybe it was acting, maybe she was playing a part in something, and I don't know, but the information we have in front of us is that this is her life, this is how things ended up. Her husband, Charlie, is a guy that you've probably seen in other stuff before. He's a bit of a character actor. He does a fantastic job here. Like, if you watch this over and over, like, he is insanely good at playing this part. It's really cool. She is a little erratic and over the top, but you kind of get the idea that that's how life would be if you were trying to get your point across to this guy. Like, he is a stone wall for the most part. But anyways, yeah, that's where she's at. We found out a couple of things beyond the fact that this marriage does not make sense on the surface. I mean, we found out she's not married to John Justice Wheeler, that's for sure. That she's not the mysterious billionaire in New York. So, she's actually married to this guy who is a paper pusher. It's a loveless marriage. She's having an affair with someone named Billy, who has also been missing for the past 2 days, and she wants to go out and look for him. I think the general consensus is Billy is the man that we saw Andy talk to back when they located the truck that was used in the hit and run. Based on Charlie talking to these other people who may or may not be important, Tina, and they mentioned Chuck. There's all these names, all these new characters, all this new mystery. But bottom line, Audrey's lover's probably dead. She had a dream that she saw him with blood coming out of his nose and his mouth, and it may have just been a premonition of what actually happened to him at the hands of her relative, Richard Horn. I mean, that's my takeaway from it. I'm not getting too much into these other details because I'm not really sure that they're important. I mean, I got flamed way back in episode 3 because I said that I didn't think some characters were important. But let's look at the facts. There is a definite campaign going on between Mark Frost and David Lynch to produce some things that aren't important in this series. It does a great job of adding to the overall mystery and gives us something to do. So the same with the Roadhouse scene at the end. Are those people important? I don't really know. It seems late in the game to bring them up. There's been other characters like them that we haven't seen again. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But in the end of what we know is important, we see Diane punch in the coordinates that she memorized, and we see the town of Twin Peaks come up on the map, and we know that it's on the radar. Then, like I said, we go into the Roadhouse. People have said that the chromatics are playing again and they're wearing the same clothes, and maybe that is a clue that the Roadhouse scenes might not always be on the same timeline. And there's definitely, you can go back and watch and you can make your own decision on that. What I want to talk about is what I started talking about, and I think it's important to remember that this is a series that was written and they know where they're going. Like it's kind of a waste of energy to try to worry that somehow one individual episode might derail the whole thing. Mark Frost especially understands how to write episodic television. That's what his background was. And he was very, very successful at it with Hill Street Blues. So you can say that there were ideas, they had them all together, and then a structure was laid out based on those ideas. So I think that everything's going to be fine. Like I said, I enjoyed the episode, so I didn't have any problems there. But I think it's a way of telling us also that same thing that we hear at the beginning of The Secret History. The mystery is what's good, not necessarily the answers. Now, like I said, there are a ton of theories going around about different parts of this, and some of them are pretty good. Most of them involve possession and Diane and Sarah Palmer, and they're laid out in pretty good ways. I don't really know. I think we're heading into the backstretch, which means answers to the key questions are going to start to pop up, but I don't really expect that all of it's going to make sense. I think the experience will be good, and I'm enjoying it. So I hope everybody tells me what they think, because there's, like I said, there was a lot of different questions and people saying, how are they going to wrap it up? I mean, I think it's just as likely that an event happens that annihilates Twin Peaks, removes it from the map, and everybody involved with the story, except for Gordon and Tammy maybe, survive. That's equally as likely as all of these different threads get put together. But regardless, and I mean, look, I make these videos, I like to look at every single thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. Like, that is fun. But as long as the end is satisfying, it won't really matter if we figure all this stuff out or not. So yeah, let's enjoy the ride. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet. And make sure you hit the little bell underneath to get notifications, because I've been putting out a lot of videos and you want to make sure you don't miss a Twin Peaks one in that mix. Follow me over on Twitter and my other social media accounts. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.